Thanks, Max. The follow-up to the Hurricane Strong is going to be done in the Midwest, and it's going to be called Strong as Hail for that. So that'll come out next year. I find that starting a speech with a pun is a terrible idea. All right. This is one of those things in a few years we're going to, this will be not part of the programs because it'll be so integrated with everything we do that it'll just be, taken for granted. But I think we're going to spend a couple minutes today just highlighting and updating some of the stuff that's going on across the country, across the world, with regards to use of social media and emergency management. And so for anybody 25 and under, feel free to tune out at this point. This is the history of social media. It's come a long way. What's not shown on the top line is 1988 when I bought my first 1200 baud modem so that I could better communicate with other 16-year-old nerds via bulletin boards. Come a long way since then, and I think you've all seen in the last few years an explosion in the way that we all can utilize use social media to help get out everything from the coordination of the response and recovery effort to the alert notification piece of it to bringing together the volunteers. Frankly, every time there's a new disaster, I'm surprised and delighted at the way that people are coming together and utilizing social media to help advance the effort of what's going on with regards to that disaster. You see it every single day, and it only makes sense that we take advantage of everything that's going on with it. Here's President Obama snapping a selfie during Nelson Mandela's funeral. This is the original selfie taken by Narcissus in a painting from a number of 100 years ago. The Pope has gone online now, and I believe his Twitter account has garnered, when it came online, it garnered about $100,000 new user or followers per hour. And so, everybody is on board with it. It's a great way for us to utilize to communicate during disasters. These are, as most of you all know, some of the more common forms of social media. In a few years, these will be replaced by others, but that's the nature of social media. Our job in emergency management, our job in, as we deal with hurricanes, is to figure out what the public is using, what society is using, and make sure that we're taking full advantage of it. Because we need to go where the people are. We need to find out what platforms they're using and how to tie into that piece of it. We also need to understand where it's going and how people are using it. A couple of things that we've read today, this Telegram, which is a system that may have been used by some of the terrorists in Brussels the other day to help communicate secretly in advance of that system. Same thing with WhatsApp. People are utilizing those systems as a way to communicate outside of text messaging. Again, these systems will be different when we talk about it next year. That's going to be the challenge for us all, is how do we understand where these systems are going, who's tying into what, and what do we need to do as communication folks to help get involved with where people are. Lots of ways to use social media. First of all, you have to be aware of it and understand who's doing what so that you can take advantage of it. We have a tremendous opportunity in this business to do real-time information. This was a tweet that went out during the Super Bowl in New Orleans. When they had that power outage during the halftime show, Nabisco was paying attention and put out this tweet right away about Oreos and getting people involved with it. Because so many people are online during the Super Bowl, this thing went viral tremendously fast. When we have the next hurricane, same thing, same situations will occur. People will be paying attention to it. People will be paying attention to the updates, what's going on with it. We've got the opportunity to get in front of a lot more eyeballs than we would normally if we understand who is communicating, how they're communicating, and what type of messages they are receptive to at that point. Social media is about getting involved in the conversation that is happening as it is out there. It's going to happen regardless of what we do. Our job is to get there and engage in that conversation and integrating into everything else that is going on. This is some of the things we're doing in the state of Florida. We utilize all the social media apps that we showed you earlier. We take everything that we do for our traditional media, all of our outreach, all of the things, the kind of conversations we're having with people via every other methodology, and putting it into our social media plan. So you don't have to come up with all new stuff for your social media integration. Take the things that you've already done and integrate it into your social media. These are some of the things that have happened the past few years. This was the Atlanta snowstorm, ice storm from a few years ago. That interesting thing on the right-hand side here, it didn't zoom in on that. The right-hand side there, the map with all the dots on it, there were spontaneous offers of lodging by folks who recognized that people were stuck on the interstate and were not going to be able to get home. So this was a spontaneous, crowdsourced offering of places for people to go stay, to get off of the road, to get out of snow, get out on the ice. You've seen things like that in the past. You're going to see more and more of that in the future. Things that emergency managers think that government couldn't even dream of putting together in real time. The crowd is doing that for us. We need to be aware of those and help facilitate those kinds of things wherever possible. You'll see in response to terrorists and other man-made disasters as well, a tremendous outpouring of support for events like this. This was in the Paris terrorist attacks. These are all cat photos posted by Matthew Green. This was actually an interesting story. This was one, they were going after the terrorists recently, and the police asked folks to not track their movements via social media because it was helping the terrorists keep track of where they were, and so instead everybody started doing things like this Brussels lockdown photo phenomenon. And then you saw it again yesterday. I'll show you some photos here again on some of the terrorist attacks. Social media has a downside. There are a lot of folks out there who don't care when your organization becomes a bit too self-congratulatory or self-aggrandizing. And so when you do things like New York City did in the middle there and try to highlight some of the success stories, people will take that and use it the other way. We had the same issue in Florida with Visit Florida, and you had some protest folks use that piece of it. The one on the upper left-hand corner, you have to be aware of what the whole thing is about and tie into it appropriately. This Why I Stayed campaign was about domestic abuse. And DiGiorno's Pizza, not paying close enough attention, obviously, said because you had pizza. Really a bad idea in that kind of situation. So, as you develop the policies, make sure that you understand the kind of conversations that you're getting into with that piece of it. This new one, Facebook has a new thing called Safety Check that allows Facebook users, when they are in situations like they were in Paris or perhaps yesterday in Brussels, to communicate with their Facebook friends their status. I'm really excited about this and the future of programs like this because, again, tracking down loved ones and identifying folks and location in the aftermath of disaster is very challenging for government, and anything we can do to utilize the stuff that Twitter is doing, that Facebook is doing, is really going to be an advantage to everything we're working on. So excited to see where this thing goes. And then finally, this was from yesterday. This was the Belgian attacks in Brussels yesterday. You already see some of the safety check features on Facebook. You see the outpouring of emotion. You see all of the thoughts people put online with that piece of it. So again, this is going to be one of those things in a few years that we'll all take for granted. We will have fully integrated into our emergency management capabilities, our communications capabilities. Many of our organizations are doing a terrific job already. Dr. Knabb talked about everything they're working on at the National Hurricane Center. So continue to pay attention to how things are evolving, pay attention to where the conversation is, and integrate it into as much as possible, because you will be much more successful as you're able to tie into where people are if we understand what the conversation is all about. And with that, I'd like to introduce the final speaker for the afternoon, a man who does utilize emergency management, does utilize social media to its full capability. And if you don't know who he is, then you're probably in the wrong room here at the hotel. So with that, the director of, or the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Greg Fugate. Greg?